Last season, the Golden State Warriors didn't have the bounce back they hoped for. They finished the regular season as the 10th seed in the West before falling to the Sacramento Kings in the first round of the play-in. Now, there was some positive takeaways. Their first-round pick, Brandon Pajimski, showed a ton of promise, and their top young asset, Jonathan Kuminga, showed a lot of year-over-year growth. But despite those positives, it was still obvious that Golden State was a long way out from getting back to serious title contention, especially after Klay Thompson, a cornerstone of their franchise over the last decade, left in free agency for Dallas. Then Chris Paul, their big addition the year prior, who left for San Antonio. These were big losses, and after their departure, Golden State didn't have much to work with in order to retool this roster. But despite that, they were still very active. They used a second-round selection on Boston College big Quentin Post. Then they targeted wings in free agency, signing Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, and DeAnthony Melton. These were fine moves, but by the time the NBA season tipped off, very few, if any, saw Golden State returning to their place at the top of the West. In fact, the Vegas expectation was for them to basically repeat last season as the final seed in the play-in. Their odds at actually winning the title were all the way down at 45-1. But then once the season actually started, the sentiment surrounding them changed quite a bit. Through the first 15 games, they were one of the top teams in the entire league. They had a 12-3 record. It looked like Andrew Wiggins had returned to form after a down year, and it looked like Buddy Hield would more than fill the void left by Klay Thompson. Unfortunately, however, things would quickly go downhill from there. From that point until the NBA trade deadline, the Warriors went just 13-23. This was due to a combination of regression for the team as a whole and several injuries. After only 6 games, one of their top free agency additions, DeAnthony Melton, suffered a season-ending knee injury. Then Jonathan Kuminga, who it looked like was about to take another leap, as in the month of December was averaging 21-6-3 on really solid splits, suffered an ankle injury on January 4th that has kept him sidelined to this day. Around the same time that he went down, we also saw Draymond miss 11 games. This is the best time of year for basketball fans, but what's been making it even more exciting for me is sweating out some entries on PrizePicks, the sponsor of today's video. It's a pick'em platform that pretty much has every stat from any sport. You just pick more or less, and you can win up to 1,000 times your entry. For my entry today, with the college conference tournaments going on, I had to start there. I'm taking RJ Davis's points to go along with Liam McNeely points. Then going over to the NBA, I threw in Luka Doncic's PRA, and then finished it off with some players relevant to today's video. I stacked Jimmy Butler rebounds plus assist with Curry points. I really like it, so I decided to go power play. If it hits, $50 becomes $1,000. If you guys are interested in checking out PrizePicks, if you click the link in the description and sign up with the promo code JIMMER, after you play your first entry of at least $5, they're hooking you up with $50 instantly. Then keep an eye out as PrizePicks always has different promos going on. Thank you PrizePicks for sponsoring today's video. Things were obviously quickly falling apart in Golden State, but once again, there was at least some positives that came out of this rough patch. Mainly the opportunity to see what they had with some of their young talent, such as their second-round pick in the 2022 draft, Brazilian forward Gui Santos. Santos had spent the entirety of his first season playing in the G League. Then this past year, he appeared in just 23 games, averaging only 4 points. Going into this season, it really didn't look like his chances of expanding that role were very good. Come the start of the new year, he'd only briefly appeared in a handful of games. But then once Kuminga and Draymond went down, the Warriors had no choice but to get him on the court. Almost immediately, he went from someone not touching the court at all to playing 21 minutes a night over the next 12 games. And overall, he played pretty well. He averaged 8 points and 5 rebounds, shooting 47% from 3. He had a few games where he caught fire from distance. 4 for 6 against Detroit, 4 for 5 against Sacramento, and 5 for 6 against Chicago. He showed enough to hold on to a role even as this roster started to get healthier. He averaged 12 minutes in the month of February, and so far in March is averaging 20. Now, Santos isn't the only hidden gem the Warriors may have discovered during what appeared to be the low point of the season. Their recent second-round selection, Quentin Post, is quickly starting to look like not just a significant part of this team's future, but their current hopes. When the Warriors grabbed Post with the 52nd pick in the draft, he was coming off a senior season at Boston College, where he averaged 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists, shooting with incredible splits, 51% from the field and 43% from 3. Then, as we talked about in our recent video, a role wasn't available for Post out of the gate, so his season started off in the G League. During the tip-off tournament, things were going well. He was averaging 19 points and 9 rebounds. But then once the G League regular season kicked off, he really started to put things together. Through 6 games, he averaged 22 points, 12 rebounds, and 2 assists, shooting 43% from the field while taking almost 7 attempts a game. You really don't see that kind of shooting production, especially volume, from a 7-footer very often. Then once joining the main roster, it was obvious he wasn't going back to the G League anytime soon. His first big opportunity came against the Bulls on January 23rd.
That's not an accident. Making a little move, and Quentin Post parries another 3. They went a little pick and pop themselves for a 3. Quentin Post from
In that game, he dropped 20 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, knocking in 5 of his 10 attempts from outside. Over the month of February, he found a consistent role in the rotation. He averaged 17 minutes, 10 points, and 4 rebounds, shooting with 54-43 splits. Now, despite so much promise being put on display by the young talent in Golden State, as the NBA trade deadline approached, it was clear that the Warriors' focus was still on the present, and they were looking to make a big move. There were a lot of names thrown around. Probably the most common was Paul George, someone they tried to go after during the offseason. Then we saw the potential of a Kevin Durant reunion gain a lot of steam, a deal that very well might have come to fruition, but reportedly was shot down by Durant himself. The options were getting more and more limited, but finally, they reached a deal. They would give up Dennis Schroeder, who they had traded for earlier in the season, Lindy Waters, Andrew Wiggins, a protected 2025 first, for Miami Heat star Jimmy Butler. The deal at the time came with quite a bit of criticism. It really did appear to be a last resort. Butler's 35 years old. We've already started to see his production trend down, and on top of that, the Warriors had to hand him a new 2-year, $110 million extension, a contract that lines up with Curry and Green, but puts the Warriors in a scary position. On the books for the 2027 season, they now have a combined $146 million going to a trio with an average age over 37. For some context, there's only been 4 players to average at least 20 at the age of 37. Only 10 have averaged even 15. Now, they didn't have to give up a lot to bring in Jimmy Butler, but the price really wasn't the issue here. Most of the concern came from the simple question: was Jimmy Butler enough of an upgrade from Andrew Wiggins to justify the amount of risk that came with this trade? Especially when considering just how tough the West is this season and is expected to be going forward. But now jumping forward to present day. While we still don't have the answer to that question, the Warriors' future is still going to be extremely hard to navigate. One thing is for sure: no one's talking about the future right now. In the short term, this trade has worked out better than pretty much anyone could have imagined. The Warriors are one of the hottest teams in the league right now. The conversations are no longer about just making something of this season, rather, their chances at a deep playoff run. Their title odds are skyrocketing and right now are in roughly the same spot as the New York Knicks. Since the trade, they've gone 12-2, a record only topped by the Cavaliers during that stretch of time. And to make it even more impressive, one of those losses was without Jimmy Butler. With him on the court, the Warriors are 11-1. From the start of the new year to the trade deadline, the Warriors went 9-10. Take a look at just how different things are from then. They've gone from the 7th offensive rating to the 5th, the 25th defensive rating to the 3rd, the 19th net rating at -2.9 to the 2nd best at 11.7, the 23rd best shooting percentage to the 9th, the 20th highest pace to the 13th. What does a pretty good job of reflecting just how different they're playing right now is that while they've continued to have the lowest percentage of unassisted baskets, they've dropped from 1st to 3-point attempts to 6th, but have gone from the 4th fewest amount of free throws a game to the 4th most. On top of that, they're winning the turnover battle, dominating it in fact. They've gone from 12th in steals to 1st, and that's turning into extremely efficient offense on the other end. They're number 1 in the league in points off turnovers, and by a massive margin. Now, what makes this remarkable turnaround so interesting is that on paper, Butler's production hasn't been anything crazy. He's averaging 18 points, shooting 46% from the field, and only 20% from 3. No better than the 18 points on 44-38 splits that the Warriors were getting with Andrew Wiggins. So it's really his ability to affect the game without scoring that's been so impactful. They've gone from an average at best playmaker in Wiggins to one of the best playmaking forwards in the entire league. Butler's averaging nearly 6 assists a game, but even that doesn't paint the full picture. He's one of the best outlets in the NBA, being able to reel in the ball in a wide receiver-esque fashion. This creates transition opportunities when there otherwise wouldn't be. Then in the half court, it appears the floor spacing concerns we had with him and Draymond together are being made up by the impact of the combination of their passing in an offense that's one if not the most active off the ball in the league. There's no quarterback controversy in Golden State. In fact, Draymond's gone from 5.5 assists a game before the deal to 6.9 with Jimmy Butler. This added playmaking is being felt by the entire roster, but no one more so than Steph Curry. He's getting the opportunity to take advantage of being the best off-ball point guard in the history of the sport. He's gone from averages of 23 points, shooting 43% from the field and 39% from 3, to 30 points a night, shooting 50% from the field and 42% from 3. And while 66% of that production and 78% from deep is assisted, Curry's still averaging over 6 assists a game. Jimmy Butler has also brought immense value to the actual rotation. He has the positional flexibility of Wiggins, but with the ability to step in as the primary ball handler at any time. This lowers the need to sacrifice for individual creation. It's allowed them to seamlessly have Schroeder's minutes absorbed by a smaller rotation that's giving bigger roles to guys like Moses Moody, who is now thriving as a full-time starter. They've been able to add more and more defense to lineups without losing anything on the other end of the court. Now, while it is easy to give all the credit to the addition of Jimmy Butler, the mentioned ascension of some of the youth on this team can't go overlooked. Quinn Post is now starting on a nightly basis. They've no longer had to sacrifice floor spacing to go bigger, something that's potentially been vital to not only the defensive success as of late, but how comfortable that Draymond-Jimmy fit has appeared to be. For most of this season, this Warriors rotation has been all over the place, but right now, it looks like it's clearer than ever. Curry, Moody, Butler, Green, and Post in the starting lineup. Then a combination of Podziemski, Hield, Payton, Looney, and Santos coming off the bench. But it should be mentioned that while this rotation is finally starting to find some consistency, that might be short-lived. Jonathan Kuminga is expected to return from a 2-month absence at any point. Great news, but where does he slot into this new group? A question that Steve Kerr clearly doesn't have the answer to yet. It's a really difficult thing when you're playing really well and then you've got a key guy coming back. It's always tough. So I think the idea is just to bring him along slowly, play him in short bursts, help him get his rhythm back. But we've got to keep playing Santos. We've got to keep playing the guys who are helping us win right now. And so usually this stuff has to kind of play out. And so we'll hope that it plays out. There is a real world where Kuminga coming back brings a whole lot more headache than benefit, especially given that there's few if any coaches in the entire league that move around their lineup more than Steve Kerr. Regardless, what's happening in Golden State right now is captivating, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.